What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Three Rivers Podcast, a podcast dedicated to Pittsburgh sports. It's not your father's Pittsburgh sports talk. We bring you unfiltered, uncensored, and unapologetic Pittsburgh sports talk weekly. I'm your host, Kruz Shoemaker, here with the ringer, Andrew Singo.
What's up, guys?
And first-round draft pick, special guest referee of the day, our good friend, Jordan Sanner.
Hey, guys.
This is episode 3 of the Three Rivers Podcast, and on our plate for this week, we will be discussing the Pittsburgh Penguins offseason. The Penguins were bounced in the first round to the New York Islanders last week, and we need to figure out where they need to go from here. After that, we will be looking at the Pirates, where they now stand in their current position, and is reality setting in for this lineup. Then also, we will look at some of the recent trades of the past couple seasons. Are they paying off, or were they duds? Then, to wrap up the episode, our thoughts on the Pittsburgh Steelers draft choices. Remember, if you're listening on Google Play, Apple Podcast, or YouTube, please subscribe, smash the like button, and follow us on Twitter at Three Rivers Pod or Instagram at Three Rivers Pod, and also on Facebook at the Three Rivers Podcast Facebook page. And let's kick things off, guys, with the Penguins off-season talk. As we know, the Islanders kind of spanked them. I didn't want to really get into it right after they lost. I thought it'd be good to sit back and kind of let us collect our thoughts a little bit about it, not come into it with more of a disdain talk and actually have more of a clear head. So I thought it was good that we had the Easter break, and then we also worked on our other podcasts in that time so we could kind of clear our heads a little bit. But biggest thing I want to bring up in the topic, there's a trend for some teams with the Red Wings, Blackhawks, and Kings that after they won the Cup, they've actually kind of fallen off the radar now. And how can the Penguins kind of avoid that? Andrew, what's your thoughts on the Penguins if they can avoid the kind of old team kind of hits the end of the road? And is there any way you can actually reinvigorate life into some longevity for Crosby's career here as it comes to the end, or are we near the end?
So I don't want to say you have to go into a soft rebuild, because the rebuild implies that you're essentially giving up for the future, but they're not. But something's got to change, and something substantial has to change. And to be fair, I don't think that we need to overreact. I get we got swept in the first round. I think that the attitude of the team, the effort wasn't there. I mean, most of these guys are 2 years out from winning back-to-back Cups. We retained most of that team. I get they're all 2 years older. But do we really need to completely overhaul the team? Probably not. I honestly don't think they're going to. There was a news article today saying that Letang and Malkin are officially on the block too as possible moves. But technically, in any sport, everybody's available for the right price. So that's really not saying anything, in my opinion.
Sure. And I think I want to touch on, though, that's where I want to throw up the caution flag where Detroit hung on to those guys because, well, we're winning with them. And then they kept hanging on. Then as they retired as Red Wings, all of a sudden the Red Wings had no one to replace them. Is it better to use these assets now in their early 30s as trade potential for younger assets to help fill that void? And maybe you have to sacrifice next season or something where you're not going to be as good to give an extra 5 years. And the same with the Kings and the Blackhawks. They also have those similar scenarios. They won the Cup, held on to that team, tried to re-sign those players, and then miss the playoffs or get bounced first round. Jordan, what's your thoughts?
I think the Red Wings held on to guys for way too long. Right. Those guys were 35, 36, and they were playing the defensemen they had when they were winning Cups were 40.
Right.
I don't think the Penguins are quite in that scenario. I just don't see them moving Malkin no matter what. I don't think Lemieux let it happen just because he was so upset about when they had to move Yager. Right. And he's regretted that ever since. So Gino's not going anywhere. Phil's obviously probably going to go. Sure. That's going to be your move. Letang, you're not going to get equal value unless a team like Nashville, who's for some reason shopping PK Subban, is like, hey, change of scenery like they did with Shea Weber. Mm-hmm. That's really the only thing you can see that you could get for him. The big thing, I think, would be moving Phil, getting cap space. And money-wise, they don't have near as much money tied up in their top 2-3 stars as what the Blackhawks did, where they're paying Taves and Kane $12 million a year. Right. And Tavis is out there giving you, 40, 50 points.
Right.
So I don't think that's the case. The Kings, a little more likely. They were not that old of a team when they were making their run, but they were a hot goalie.
Right.
Which is exactly what the Penguins did, both years.
Sure.
Fleury carried the mail the second year until Murray got healthy and the first year Murray got hot.
It's funny you bring up that because there's a lot of times where the Fleury-Murray debate comes up and I always laugh. I'm like, does anyone realize that, like, Fleury was just as much a part of the 17 team as Matt Murray was? I don't want to bash on Murray. He hasn't lost them the series the last 2 years, but also vice versa. He didn't do enough to steal any of the series.
No.
So I'm not saying Matt Murray's a bad goalie, but if I watch some of the other playoff games right now, there's goalies going out there and stealing it.
Peter Mrazek just had a 34 save shutout.
Right.
He's a career backup.
Sure. To be fair, though, does Peter Mrazek have Jack Johnson playing in front of him?
No, and I think that goes into talking, where the Penguins were 2 years ago versus where they were today defensively. Before the Cole trade, there's still a lot. After the Cole trade, I still feel like they haven't been able to rebuild a defense to be effective.
And you had Rutherford coming out after the season saying this is the best defensive team he's had.
That was awkward.
Which is obviously
BS.
False.
But he usually isn't the type of guy to BS. I think he honestly believes that because he's pretty much the one that's got, like he said, changes are going to happen, and he usually says things and means them. So he must honestly think that this is the best defense they have. Maybe they have guys with the potential, Dumoulin's a great defenseman, and Letang's a great defenseman when he's on, and what Schultz can do, and what you think Pettersson can do. I guess if you're looking at it from their draft round,
right? Yeah, sure. It's a great decor if you look at the round all the guys were drafted in.
The big thing is the NHL now is about puck movement and speed. And I'm sorry, Eric Goodbranson was solid for the Penguins, but he does not fit that mold.
Right? Are you going to win long term with Goodbranson?
He's great on a bottom pair if he's $1.5 million a year.
Right.
He's right here. I see him. He is at $4 million a year, and he's got to be a bottom pair guy.
Right.
And you have Johnson, who's at 3, who's a bottom pair guy. You got 2 of the same player.
Sure.
For $7 million.
Whereas I felt like the team honestly played better with a guy like Chad Ruhwedel in the lineup who could skate and get out of his own end.
Right. The big thing in the NHL today too is exploiting the rookie contracts and trying to get as much potential before you have to pay anyone.
That's in every sport.
Well, or absolutely every sport. But I think the Penguins too, the money with the defensemen, I look at it as they have a cap they got to hit. Whatever, those guys are on their roster, I'm not going to worry about how much they make versus their production. It's whatever, they're on the team. It is what it is. One thing I do think with the D talk, like you said, in today's NHL, I noticed a lot in the recent games I've been watching. Sullivan is correct. The D pinching down is the new system. Because what I see a lot, too, is they'll battle in the bottom corner on a far side, and they kind of overload with all their forwards, and they leave that off defenseman way over on the boards, and then they hard wrap it. He comes down and meets it about the hash marks, and it gets everyone to scramble on the defensive end to get back in position to cover him, and it leaves usually someone open where they can get a bang-bang play. But you have to have quick enough defensemen to get down, make that one play, and then be able to get back out. Where when you have, like you said, if Branson's flying down that wall or Johnson, they're not going to make a correct play, number one, because they're not even, they don't have the quickness to think about the great play. And then when they do make the bad play and it turns over, they don't have the speed to get back and catch anybody.
All they're going to do is hit you 2 seconds after you got rid of the puck and already made the play.
Right.
And one of the best teams to watch in the playoffs right now as far as, making those pinches and even getting out of their own end easily, Columbus.
Oh, yeah.
The guys on their back end, they're big, they can skate, they have their head up and make good plays.
I've been very
guys like Seth Jones, Ryan Murray, they just, if they make mistakes, they're back and the other D-man's got them covered.
Absolutely.
And that's just not what the Penguins have had.
No, I agree. And that's where I think, looking at this, I think we should go over, Jordan, you brought up, when we were going over this episode, to do elimination, but then also not really exactly who replaces the players, but what type of player you think should be a reasonable replacement for each one if we say they got to go. Because I think that's only fair. It's hard to say subtraction if you don't have addition. Right. So, I think we can look at putting on a little GM cap here if you guys want. I think we're all in agreement, though. this is a very pivotal offseason, I think, for them going forward if they want to try to not fall into that trap where they become the really too much of an old man team and try to hang on to the Detroit Red Wings. And to give the Red Wings credit, they went to the playoffs, 22 straight years, something like that. So it did pay off for 22 years for them, but also those pre-salary cap. Then when salary cap hit, they did overpay too long to try to be the nice, generous people. And I do feel today you got to cut ties when it's the time's right. So let's just go over the roster. I don't know in order to start or anything, but I just have a roster here. So we'll start with the top name on this one. It's going by alphabetical order from the last name. So it's Zach Ashton Reese at 24 years old. I don't think he has to go anywhere, obviously, at that.
He's an RFA, I believe.
Yeah, he's an RFA. They're going to bring him back. They like him. He's going to give you bottom 6 minutes, and if people get hurt, has the potential skill to hang on a top six role for a couple games. So
sure. I think he's definitely safe. The next one on the list, Nick Bjugstad. I don't think really
obviously
much has to be said there either. He's only 26 years old. But I do think, what role do we want to see him at next year? Is he third line center, or would you guys try to think of him being maybe a top 6 forward? What's your thoughts, Jordan?
I feel like he's going to have to play third line center just because the only other option you're really going to have there is McCann. And I feel like McCann should probably play
top
with
6.
Sid, honestly.
Yeah. Sure.
Him, Gensel, and Sid tore it up when they were together. And Bjugstad, he's not as physical as you would think he would be for as big as he is.
Right.
And I feel like he doesn't quite have the finish to play on the top 6 role. But if you can get him to use his reach and everything, he's good at face-offs. Let him be that third line center.
Right. See, that's where in my mind, though, if they could find a different person to be third line center via offseason, I would like to see him become maybe a Hornquist replacement and Hornquist be out of the lineup if that could be a perfect world scenario, but I don't know if that could be a perfect world scenario because I think he could be a good replacement for doing what Hornquist does, being the in-front presence. And I think he actually has softer hands in front than Hornquist. Mm-hmm. He just, unfortunately, playing the third line role, a third line center role last year, he wasn't going to be as flashy on the highlights, but I think he could have a potentially bigger role in my opinion, but time could tell on that. Next one on the list is a guy that I thought had a nice little introductory year in Teddy Bluger, 24-year-old young center. Jordan, what do you think about Teddy Bluger?
He has to be your fourth line center.
Yeah.
He has to. Right. And honestly, he's a guy that if Bjugstad isn't doing what you want him to and you don't acquire another center, he can play third line center and give you, I think, everything that Bjugstad does and then some. So he's young, he's cheap.
Right.
He's also an RFA.
He's an RFA, but he's not going to get more than $1 million.
Right. He hasn't done anything enough to prove anything more.
He's the type of player that the team needs to play to win with, just like Rust and those guys were a couple of years ago.
Andrew, what do you think about Bluger?
100% stay. I mean,
right.
There's no way you're going to let him walk.
Next guy on the list is your typical call into the sports show. Got to get rid of this guy, Sidney Crosby. Got to get rid of that Sidney Crosby. Yeah, got to get rid of that guy.
He's done.
I'm not even going to skip. Matt Cullen's on the list. He's probably gone from the league.
Right? He's old.
Right? We would say he's probably out of the league now at this point.
He did say he might want to play another year, but it shouldn't be.
Would the Penguins want him to play another year for them at this point?
They really shouldn't have this past year, and they did. So
then again, yes, they did. And
it was like the greatest hits tour.
Right? Is he like the Craig Adams?
No, Dominic Simone is the Craig Adams.
Yes, true. Matt Cullen, I think, would be gone. Mm-hmm. Obviously, replacement-wise, we've already kind of talked about that. Teddy Bluger.
That's internal.
So that's easy. I think there. Casey DeSmith's on the list. He's their signed backup. He started out the year really good, and then second half of the year looked like a backup goalie. But I think he's a fine backup goalie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely, no doubt about that. I feel good with him as their backup and everything like that. I think that's a good guy to have. You know, you don't want to get caught out because Murray is always one injury away. For one something away. He seems like he's always hurt. So.
Right. What do you think about DeSmith?
Yeah, he's a great backup goalie. I mean, as far as what you can ask for what he's going to play 30-ish games a year. He's going to give you a shot to win most of them. I hold him higher than Tristan Jarry. I feel like Jarry's younger, and you might actually get something for Jarry. You're not going to move to Smith. So.
Right. Next on the list, Brian Dumoulin. I think he's solidified himself, obviously, as their top shutdown number one defenseman that they like going forward. So, I don't think there's much to discuss there.
No, he's not going anywhere.
Differ there. Then Goodbranson's on the list. Jordan, what do you think on Goodbranson?
He's going to stay because I don't think there's another team in the NHL that's going to take that.
Right.
That being said, he was way, way better than advertised when he came in. He was said to be the worst defenseman in the league by far.
Sure.
And he came in and was pretty serviceable playing with Pettersson. So
right. He has that, he was able to be that guy that Jamie Alexiak ended up not being able to be, as kind of that tough guy enforcer role at times. And I hate to say it, but you still got to have someone in it. I don't like it, but you have to have someone there to do that.
Push back.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing next year with the defense, with Goodbranson still being on it, is maybe they pull something around the trade deadline if they're feeling like they need that other defenseman, and then he fills in as the seventh defenseman that can fill the rotation under injuries. I just don't know if they can win with Goodbranson and Johnson both on the roster.
And you said about money, but to have $7 million a year wrapped up into those two is
I know
not a good look.
It's a tough pill,
especially when it's their moves that your GM willingly made.
Right. Like I don't hate Goodbranson, but it's today's NHL. Does he fit to succeed whenever playoff time comes around? I don't know. But yeah, he'll be on the team for sure. The next one on the list obviously isn't going anywhere either. Jake Gensel, 40-goal season, hardly on a power play, tremendous. I don't think there's anything to discuss there. He solidified himself as Sidney Crosby's Robin, so I don't think much talk. But the next one on the list, Patrick Hornquist. Jordan, what do you think about Patrick Hornquist?
He's going to stay, but he should probably
right.
I mean, the injuries with the type of game he plays, it reminds me a lot of what happened to Red Wing, Johan Franzen, who was a great net front guy, couple concussions and everything, and that grit's not there anymore. You're just not making the plays, and
right.
I don't know if you're going to be able to replace him. I don't know if you're going to find a team to take him.
Right.
So
he also has a no trade clause.
Right.
And
as does half the team at this point.
Right.
And I mean, he's also one concussion away from being done.
Yeah, and I think if you look at when Sidney Crosby had his concussion/neck injuries, he said the hardest thing about coming back at one point was going to the front of the net and scoring those goals. That's his office too, to score goals. And he was struggling when he came back to score goals, and he was shooting the puck from 20 feet out all the time. And then he finally migrated his way back in. But does Hornquist have that much time left in his career to find himself back in or not?
And that's the thing. If he's not in the paint scoring goals, he's bringing nothing to the table. He's not fast enough to really get in and forecheck. He's a net front presence.
He starts probably 3 more years?
They just signed him last year to a 3-year extension after this year.
Yes, I think unfortunately he's stuck on the team until the end.
I mean, I always love Hornquist.
No, I like him a lot too.
Right,
but
it's just
he's one of those older contracts that ends up hurting him.
Yeah. It's a bad situation. Those are the type of guys that I feel like you make the mistake hanging on to. It's not your Crosby's.
It's like a loyalty thing to him too. It's like we have to show this loyalty to them for what they've done for us, and I think that's
it's nice.
It's nice,
but business
is business,
right? Yeah, he's the one that I wish they could find a way out of. Like I said, because I think Bukestad could end up actually being the guy that you replace his role with, but unfortunately, I think he'll stick. The next one on the list, Tristan Jarry. Jordan, what's your thoughts on Tristan Jarry? I know you talked about him a little bit there.
I mean, he's 23 years old. You really can't stash him in the minors anymore. You need to start bringing up another younger goalie. I feel like you try to move him for something. If a team gives you a late draft pick, you take it. But there's teams out there always looking for a decent backup, and he is a decent backup. So,
yeah, I think time's still to tell in his career in terms of, if he finds the right situation, maybe he does turn into a 1A, but the right situation isn't Pittsburgh, I don't think, at this point in time. So moving him would be, in my opinion, the smartest decision they could make at this point. Next on the list, Jack Johnson. What do you guys think on Jack Johnson?
Strap him to a rocket and send him to the moon.
Singo, what do you think on Johnson?
I mean, he was obviously not very good last year, but then it seemed like in the second half there, when Letang went down, his play changed a little. Whenever they simplified the game, he really wasn't that bad. I'm not gonna say I want him out there on anything other than third pairing minutes, but at the same time, if he accepts his role in that regard and they can get productive minutes, but like Jordan said, the problem is, do you really want to be paying your third pairing defenseman $7 million between the two of them?
Sure.
But your thing is, you're not going to get him to go anywhere unless magically we're able to trade him like we did before Scuderi. Like we can get rid of Scuderi for Daly or whatever.
Yeah, that was some
magic.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe there's some voodoo magic that we'll be able to pull, like freaking Ryan Murray or something from. But I think Ryan Murray is a free agent this coming year. But anyway, we better just hope for magic on that one, or hope that he accepts his role and is able to play like he did down the stretch where he was solid while McCitchen was out.
Yeah, and bringing up what Rutherford said there with that D core being what he figured was the best from like the time he was there, I was very interested to hear from Sullivan and Rutherford at the exit kind of interviews there, because I wanted to see. I always felt like they weren't on the same page for the team that Rutherford was building versus the style that Sullivan wanted, but then they both like kind of came out and smiled and put on the face that they were. So that threw a curveball into my thoughts, because my thoughts were the fact that like the Johnsons and Gabransons were not what Sullivan really wanted, but that's what Rutherford wanted. But then at the same time, they're kind of telling everybody, no, we're both on par with this. We like this. But it confuses me, because my problem with Johnson, Gabranson, like they need good partners with them, but at the same time, you know, is it better to even have Ricola in the lineup versus those two just for the fact of mobility?
You don't want to put a boat anchor on a Ferrari.
Right, you know? Right. I mean, it's just long term, that D core does bother me because of the fact of how the playoffs went then. Yeah, end of the regular season, I was like, well, they're playing better or whatever. You know, maybe this is a good thing. And then the playoffs happened and they didn't win a game. Then you look at it, well, obviously they weren't good offensively in the series, but defensively it just didn't look good either. So I don't know. It's tough with Johnson. He's not probably going anywhere, like you said, unless there's some voodoo magic thing that can happen again, which is tough. Now, next on the list is a big time talk for the offseason, every offseason. Pretty much for some reason he's been going to be traded every offseason the last 3 years, is Phil Kessel. Jordan, your thoughts?
Phil's going to go. He's not going to be replaceable because he's a point-a-game player for $6.8 million. You're not going to find that anywhere else. That being said, the team, as is going into next year, is over the cap. Mm-hmm. And you've got to make space, and you have more holes to fill. I feel like he has to go. It sucks that he's going to go because everybody loves Phil Kessel.
Right.
But you have to move him at this point. Mm-hmm. You can't hang on to him.
Singo, what do you think?
I agree with that. I really don't want to see him go, but I think he's the one that makes the most sense. I don't know that they'll get true market value for him. I mean, he's not, well, how many years he's been with us now? 4 or whatever. 4 years older than he was when we got him, but he also has the no movement clause, so he's going to have to want to go wherever they can find a place for him. Mm-hmm. So.
The real return for him if they trade him is the cap space. I mean, you're going to get a late pick and maybe a prospect as a throw-in. You're not going to get
hopefully
players.
a younger player.
No, and the biggest thing about Phil Kessel, though, he is 31 years old. So he's another one of those ones where, if it was the perfect scenario where they could keep him, is it even worth continuing to extend him out, keep him around, then all of a sudden he hits the point where he can't score at all anymore, and he's locked into some contract at plus 30. See, I think, obviously, he'll be moved. With it, that said, though, what's the addition for Phil Kessel on, the top 6 forwards? Is it within, or is there a type of player you think they could bring in?
I don't think you're replacing him with one player.
Right.
You're just not going to.
Oh, sure.
You're going to have to plug and play, and hopefully somebody, maybe, Bukestad can jump up and play wing if needed, and Blucher can fill in third line center. As far as wingers out there in free agency, the one guy I'd like to see him get would be Matt Zuccarello, but he was just traded for a first round pick. He's going to be expensive.
Right.
I don't think he's really going to be a guy you can get. I think you get Michael Furlan from Carolina, who was only making, I think, $1.75 million last year. if he signs as a free agent, you get him for $3-4 million, get him to play with Gino. It gives you more money to toy around and give yourself more depth. So you're not replacing his stats, but I feel like you're definitely strengthening your whole lineup by moving him.
Right, and I think with replacement too, like what I'm meaning, not really replacing his role 100%, but like replacement wise, just within the top 6 forwards of the Penguins. And yeah, I think the way the NHL is kind of looking right now there too is they're showing that forwards remind me a lot of running backs in the NFL at this point, where like the NFL, if you look at the Steelers picked one late in the fourth or in the fourth round there that maybe in other years in that was it Benny Snell Jr. In other years probably goes maybe a little bit higher, but running backs have lost their value a lot in the NFL because people have realized that you don't need a superstar stud running back. You can have multiple running backs. And I feel like with looking at Las Vegas and different teams that have these collection of almost like third to second line forwards, that the Penguins are not going to be in a worse position, in my opinion, if they lose Phil Kessel, but also then have more guys. I mean, Gensel's obviously better, but the little vanilla midget type replacement guys come in and continue to work hard. It's not going to be that big of a deal in terms of what the Penguins. I mean, you have Crosby and Malkin setting these guys up. They're going to score goals. Yeah, I mean, do you guys agree with that? Like with having Crosby and Malkin, wingers they're going to score.
More so with Sid than Gino.
Well, sure.
Gino definitely complements with a shoot first me player.
Yeah.
It's just how it's always been. But
sure.
Yeah, I feel like you can almost put anybody there that can skate, and as long as they have a pair of hands, they'll be okay.
Right. Well, after Kessel, then Chris Letang's on the list. Chris Letang's probably not going anywhere, but he is.
We like to talk about
also 31, and everyone likes to talk about it. Jordan, what's your thoughts on Chris Letang?
He is a stay unless you get like that change of scenery trade. Like I mentioned with Subban or somebody like that. Other than that, you have to deal with the good and bad. He's going to play a riskier game, but he's also going to have stretches where he's dominant. So he's got to take him as he comes.
Singo, what's your thoughts on Letang?
I mean, I don't see you trading him, and like you said, unless you're getting that change of scenery player. I mean, if we're able to get PK Subban, yeah, I'll open the door for him. That's great.
Is Subban still the defenseman he used to be, though?
Is Letang?
Subban's younger than Letang.
And what do we know? Like, I love Letang. Letang's a great player. I mean, he's kind of a head case at times, but I start to wonder with his injury history now, is that going to start, is father time coming for him that, these injuries are going to start piling up and that he's going to stop being able to play that game
right
as effective?
I think that's why he's one of those ones too, where he's at that 31-year-old age where, man, is it where you take the hit where you're not going to have, like, he's not replaceable, but at the same time you can move him on and, maybe get, I don't know. It's tough right. Because he's one of those ones you hang on until the end of his career, and then does that turn around and bite you?
The thing with him is like he's so, I don't know how to say this. For the way he plays, like his aggressive style, he's a small guy. He could be a good candidate. Move him out before he hits the twilight of his career. No offense to him, just so that we can get a return now, because whenever he hits 35, he's probably going to be useless.
Right.
Whereas Subban, bigger guy, I know he plays a really physical game and everything, but I just feel like, look how other old defensemen in the league. I'm pretty sure somehow, did Nicholas Cromwell finally retire?
No, he's still playing.
Exactly. He's going to be like 120 years
right?
old.
Well, one thing, too, with Subban, and the team really doesn't have a whole lot of it right now, is he's a guy that's going to come in with some flair and energy and get guys going. He's a guy you hate to play against, but when he's on your team, you have to.
Oh, yeah.
And that's...
And I was just wondering, though, because I did hear that Subban, someone was watching the Predators that I was talking to recently, and they said they just felt like Subban looked like just an average another defenseman now. I don't know. I didn't watch Nashville's series this year, so I really don't have much to say about Subban this year.
He is tagging Tigers ex-woman. Lindsey Vaughn.
True.
Maybe that has something to do with it.
Get in the hole! Let's go, Tiger!
She sucked the life out of Tiger during that time. He wasn't very good when they were together.
The only way
His
you
back
make,
was all fucked up.
Yeah, but we're gonna blame Lindsey Vaughn, okay?
Right, that's what I'm saying.
the only way you make that trade is if Lindsey Vaughn is out of the picture.
You heard it here first.
All right, Lindsey Vaughn's got to go. So yeah, Letang, I feel like he's gonna stay, but it's one of those ones that I kind of wish maybe they actually could think about moving him soon, just for the fact that he is 31, and it might turn into one of the situations where he retires as a Penguin that ends up biting him long term. But time will tell. We will see. Next on the list, Oli Mata. What do we think on Oli Mata?
Bye.
Bye, Felicia.
The bottom line is he's not a great puck mover. He's not physical. He can't skate. He just doesn't fit the mold of today's NHL. And I feel like he's young enough. He's still only 23.
Yeah.
So somebody will take a chance on him. You really can't have him.
No, that's the thing with his age. Should think they should be able to get some kind of healthy return with his pedigree too, of having 2 Stanley Cups.
Right.
And you're gonna get someone to be dumb enough to not really care about his foot speed. And be like, it's Oli Mata. He's 23 and has 2 cups. Someone's gonna bite on that. And I think you can get pretty good value. Then obviously replacement wise, I think they already have enough within their system and stuff. It's not that big of a deal.
Are you losing much if a guy like Ricola takes his spot?
No.
Right.
And I don't even think you're really going to see Ricola play because I feel like
right. I'm just saying.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah. It's not. If you're talking the 7th defenseman, it doesn't make a difference.
Sure.
I'd rather have Pedersen eat up all of Oli Mata's minutes.
Oh, 100%.
Right.
Yeah, 100% for me too. Oli Mata, he's gotta go. I think he's at is he at $4 million?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he's signed for another 3 years after this one.
Wow.
Yeah. So we got some time yet. I'd see. Surely you could be able to get a return on him. You're probably gonna get a better return for him than you're gonna get for Kessel.
That's if
yes.
People talk about how the Penguins have all this top flight talent that's making all this money at forward. They were like the 23rd ranked team in salary at forward. 5th in defenseman.
Right.
So they're spending all their money on the back end.
Which is fair, because for the longest time, that was,
But
issue.
you need to have a really good back end.
Right.
For top 5, you should have top 5, top 10 deep, and you don't. So.
Well, and the funny part about that, like you're saying, them spending all the money on D, the 2 years they won the Cup, their D cores were really freaking good, though. Like, really good, with the Dailies, Schultz, Letang leading the core there. I really like both of those cores, and they deserve to be paid whatever because they were winning with them. Like you said, now they're paying this D core a lot, and it's not winning. So it kind of nips them in the butt. But like I said, Rutherford's got to work within the salary cap, so it is what it is. And like I said, the forward-wise, is it today's NHL? You can kind of just pay a bunch of jabronis to go out there with Crosby and Malkin, and they're still going to put up points and succeed. Maybe. The next one on the list after Mata, Evgeny Malkin. What's our thoughts on Malkin?
I think he's got to stay. You're talking about generational talent. Yeah, he had a down year. We went through this before years ago with him coming off a down year. Oh, we're in trade, or like at the deadline, there was like rumors we're trading to LA and
Dustin
stuff.
Brown every year.
Yeah, exactly. Like, can you imagine if we would have done that?
Yeah,
how embarrassing that would have been. I just don't think
he also wasn't 32 like he is now.
I understand that.
You don't trade those guys.
I get the argument that you want to try to move these guys out before it's too late. But he's kind of like the one where him and Crosby are almost untouchable for the length of their careers. Crosby is, and Malkin.
So I used to be the one that said, you never can trade these guys until I look at these 3 teams over here, the Kings, the Blackhawks, and the Red Wings. And I'm sitting there looking at myself as a Penguins fan and knowing that I'm going to be a fan forever. So I'm looking at my long-term goals here, right? And I'm looking at Malkin and I'm going, Malkin retires as a Penguin, Crosby retires as a Penguin, and now I'm 10 years of no more playoffs for the Penguins potentially.
Now, hold up. Now, if we make a deal, that opens up the cap space, they sign a guy like Panarin, it could be a little bit more palatable. But I think you'd have to be able to, like, if we're trading Malkin, then we're signing the top 2 free agents available or something in that vein.
The problem is it doesn't give you the money to do that because Malkin's only making 9.5, and that might get you 1.
I get that.
So
Yeah, I'm just looking at like the whole solution now of them hanging on to this core the whole way to the end. Does it end up then crushing them for 10 more years?
If the Penguins have taught you anything through their entire history,
yes,
they're going to be bad for a little bit. They're going to get superstars. They're going to win, and they're going to be bad again.
Well,
And
can lightning strike, though, the same place 3 times in a row?
If it can do it twice, it can do it thrice.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so.
There's the soundbite. If
I like it.
Twice, it can do it thrice.
I like it.
And I feel like if Rutherford even tried to make a move to trade Gino, Lemieux's going to fire him or something.
Sure, I don't think it'll happen, but the more I look at it internally at myself, I'm like, man, I don't know. I wish there was a way to save the Penguins.
And I like the other 3 teams because they did have examples, of those guys that are getting older, getting paid. There's not a player on any of those teams that's on Evgeny Malkin's level, short of Patrick Kane and just a goal scoring.
Right.
There's not one.
But looking at Detroit, they hung on to the Zetterberg. That's all those guys of that thing the whole way to the end, and then it kind of has now bit them where they're almost going to be probably 10 years without making the playoffs.
Yeah.
Or and
but
stuff.
I feel like I would much rather try to give it another go with these guys because they've earned it. Gino and Sid have earned the right to stay together, get these guys there. And, at the end, you're going to have years where you don't make the playoffs. That's you can't.
Right, but I guess that's why I'm trying to throw out, is it actually potentially avoidable if it would be totally blown up and they miss just 1 year next year, but then make it 12 straight after that or something? I don't know. I just, hypothetically looking at these teams, is there maybe potentially actually a different solution to the problem? I don't know if there is. Yes or no.
I mean, one thing we didn't talk about is how about we stop trading away our first round picks and start.
We have the next 3 years first round picks, but next year we don't have a second or a third.
Right.
And, this is use the draft to get these guys in. You said about taking advantage of rookie contracts. We got to make these first round picks count. We got to keep them. We got to make them count. We got to get guys to complement these superstars.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. Like, does Evgeny Malkin get you those draft picks? I'm just saying, like,
I don't know anymore. Does a 31-year-old get you a first-round pick?
It does.
People are going to give a shit ton for Malkin if he was available.
The problem is, the only thing you can get, you're not going to replace him for years.
Well, right.
You're not going to.
No.
What good does it do to move him and not replace him? And then by the time you replace him with a young guy, Sid's 35, 36, and he's ready to call it a career.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, they can still play really well with Sid and company.
You know what? We had a first round exit this year.
Sure.
I'd much rather not make the playoffs a couple of years and build more.
Sure.
Or what I mean, as opposed to just doing enough to make the playoffs and that being good enough.
Right. But I'm saying, is that where they're at now, though? To the end of Crosby and Malkin's career, are they just going to continue to make the playoffs and be bounced first round?
I mean, that was the talk before they won the back-to-back cups.
Sure,
so.
But they also were
younger.
Now they're getting into the 30s. Is that talk more relevant now?
I don't think Sid had 100 points. He's 31 years old.
Sure.
I don't think he's going to fall off. Malkin was still a point-a-game player, and he said he had a terrible year.
No, Malkin,
they're not going to fall off.
Definitely a bounce-back type of guy. He's, whatever, this year was this year. And I also look at, I know Toronto can't make it past Boston right now, but they did essentially just get rid of all their guys, and then it worked out for them. So I don't know. It's a weird, tough scenario where I don't know what the right answer is, but it's just there's a lot of food for thought to put out there. Jared McCann's on the list at 22 years old. He's not going anywhere. Like you said, he's solidified that he can play with Crosby and Gensel. That's I don't think we even need to discuss Jared McCann. I love him. He's a great energy guy. He just comes with a wrinkle smile on his face. I feel like contagious.
Great on the PK.
Right.
Which you need a guy on the PK that's a threat.
Yeah. No, love Jared McCann. Matt Murray's on the list. Obviously, they are all in on Matt Murray. I personally don't like Matt Murray's style of goaltending because he is more a blocking goalie. I like goalies that see the puck, but Matt Murray's Matt Murray. That's what they like, so I have nothing more to say. What do you guys think about Murray?
I think they pretty much said today in that news article that the two players that were untouchable were Crosby and Murray.
Sure. No, right. Makes sense.
And Murray, if you throw out the first half of the season, which you can't do, but if you just block it out, the second half of the year, he played how many straight games at the end of the year, and he was pretty good in most of them. So.
Sure. I don't know. I watched the playoff series right now, and I'm watching Bobrovsky and watching these goalies that actually can see the puck into their glove and blocker, and I'm like, God, I miss that kind of goaltending. But like I said, I'm not saying Fleury's better because Fleury got bounced again. Fleury always has that tendency of not being able to get it fully done when it matters, but I just like goalies that can make saves, and I feel like Matt Murray in the game against the Islanders, when obviously Letang made the bad play, causes an odd man rush, but when he slides over, Murray he made no effort to save the puck other than praying it would hit him. Now, granted, Eberle put a great shot in goal. No goalie's probably saving that, but most goalies in the NHL are going to make a reaction with their glove towards the puck. Murray literally, I feel like, closes his eyes and just prays it hits his body on 90% of the shots, and it does 90% of the time. But to get in through the playoffs, these goalies right now are making those extra saves, though, that aren't the 90 playing the percentages. They're making that extra save on top of it, and that's what puts you through. And like I said, he did win the Cup in 16, but I feel like you could have put any goalie in 16 in there and they would have won. And then Fleury got him actually through probably the harder series against Washington the year, and then he kind of just came in and had to beat Murray again. I don't know. Time will tell. Hopefully Murray, he continues to try to get better. I will give him that. I see him working on trying to get better at making the saves, seeing the puck and all that, and battling. So I don't know. Time will tell. He's still 24, so he's still got a lot of years to learn and grow, because Fleury at 24 wasn't completely sound either. He did win a cup or whatever, but younger in his career, but goaltenders are still, by the time they get to their 30s, they get into their prime. But I don't know if there's much to really say there, because he's going to be on the team, and let's hope for the best for Matt Murray, and let's hope he continues to grow. Marcus Pettersson is next on the list. I thought he was a great addition. I love Pettersson. What are your guys' thoughts on Pettersson?
They're bringing him back, no doubt. He was really good. That was honestly a great trade, as much as it stung to see Sprong go, because he was really the only scoring winger you had in the minors, but he obviously wasn't going to work out. Pettersson helped, played well with pretty much whoever they put him with, and he was solid.
Mm-hmm. He's an RFA. I'm assuming he's going to get a little bit of a raise. But yeah, I would say he's definitely coming back. He should be a staple in your second pairing.
Yeah. No, I love Pettersson. Great addition. Next on the list for the roster, Chad Rubeetle. What do we think about Chad Rubeetle at 28 years old?
He fits a system and plays well when he's plugged in the lineup. If that's your seventh defenseman and you move, one or two of the other guys, it's perfect scenario for him. He showed in the playoffs he can step in and almost play any type of game.
But what he is in the UFA, so they would have to.
He's going to be dirt cheap.
Right.
He made $650,000.
Yeah, he'll be $1 million player max,
if that. I don't think it would touch that.
Think you would.
So he'll be.
And no team's really going to go out there and go above and beyond to pay him more.
No,
he hasn't done enough to show that. So yeah. Next on the list, which I didn't even know Rust was actually this young still. He's 26. Is Brian Rust. What are our thoughts on Brian Rust?
I love Brian Rust.
I thought he was a little bit older, to be honest. I think he's actually still 26. That's still pretty young. So
yeah, he might not.
They just signed him recently, right?
Yeah, he signed an extension before this year.
Okay.
He might not have the upside that I thought offensively. I thought he could be a 20-goal guy, and maybe that's not him. But I like his game.
Yes,
he's fast. He's perfect for the NHL game.
Every shift he's balls the ball. Yeah.
And I mean, the thing with him too, he's streaky. So you're going to have times like the beginning of this year where he wasn't scoring, and the end of the year where he wasn't scoring. But there was a stretch there where he's putting two goals in every other night. And I think he got close to 20 goals this year.
Right.
I know he was like third on the team in goals, third or fourth.
Sure.
And he missed 10, 15 games. So
yeah, no. What I like about Russ too is he can play a little bit at everywhere and anywhere in any role. So those guys are great to have, because if someone goes down and you need a first line replacement, he'll slide in that he can do that. If you want him just to be on the third line, he's going to be on the third line. You want him killing penalties, he kills penalties. Whatever you need Russ to do, he'll do it. So I think that he's a great asset. Next on the list,
Russ had 18 goals, and he played in 72 games. So he would have been a 20-goal scorer.
Sure.
Yeah, so
no, that's great. Next on the list, Justin Schultz. What are our thoughts on Justin Schultz?
I think you should just handle this one.
Right. So Justin Schultz should be a Penguin for life, and Justin Schultz should be everything in hockey ever. Justin Schultz is the best. I love Justin
Norris, Hart.
Oh, Justin Schultz. That's all I got to say. No, obviously he's not going anywhere, so I don't know if there's much to say there, right? No.
Nope.
Okay, so nothing to say on Schultz besides he's my boy. Next on the list is everybody's favorite player, this son of Sullivan, the chosen one, Dominic Simone. So what do we think about the chosen one? Sullivan's lover boy.
You guys go.
I'll start. So the fact that he played on the first line for a majority of the season.
My favorite part of
he had 1 goal in 33 games.
Yes.
You could put a 50-year-old retired player with a broken leg out there, and he might pot one in. And the fact that Sullivan keeps going back to him, and I get he drives possession. A player that drives possession and can't score should be on your fourth line,
right?
Not your top line.
No, that was
That's the only problem I have with it.
Yeah, absolutely. That was my biggest concern at the beginning of the year. Dominic Simone's out there with Sidney Crosby, and I'm like, what the fuck? This guy is a plug. Sure, if you put him on the fourth line, like you said, I'm fine with it. We play him where he actually is supposed to be, and I'm fine with it.
But
you're putting
numbers.
It's like putting this. It's like running a company, and all of a sudden they put the janitor as a CEO.
Like he was doing really good.
He's a great janitor.
Yeah, great janitor. Put him as a CEO of the company now. Like, what the fuck? Like, it was the worst thing ever.
It was just like Biosman with Craig Adams. The dude at that point didn't belong in the lineup. Sets the team record for games played.
Right.
In a row.
Yeah, I don't hate Dominic.
He also fought Malkin.
And that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Dominic Simone is 24 years old. Like I said, if they keep him in the bottom 6, I'm fine with him. But if he's playing with Sidney Crosby again at points next year,
I'm going to bash my head against the wall.
It's going to be awful.
There's no reason. There's no reason he should. I mean, first off, if that first line next year isn't McCann, Crosby, Gensel, there's something seriously wrong.
I mean, to talk about the guy that I used to hate, Chris Kunitz, he did at least produce when he played with Crosby. That's why I was actually fine with it.
But he did.
It just became a joke. It became almost like a meme for us with me and Kunitz. I actually liked the way Kunitz played, whatever. It just was a meme for me to kind of make fun of him at that point and say, nah, fuck Kunitz. But Dominic Simone I legitimately hate. Like, he's my Carter Rowney.
Oh, boy.
Like,
Carter Rowney was so much better than what Dominic Simone is.
I guess. But yeah, Dominic Simone, awful. Wish he could not be on the team.
That being said, stay.
Right.
Carter Rowney did have 3 assists in a playoff game.
3 ass equals 1 goal.
That's right. 3 ass does equal 1 goal. Thank you, Bob Erie. So Zach Trotman is next on the list. He's a 28-year-old defenseman. What are our thoughts on Trotman?
I believe he's a UFA also. I think it's one of the two, him or Ruido, could be brought back. Probably not both. That's the way I see it.
What is a Zach Trotman? No, he's 28 years old. He might have played in 2-3 games. Right. He was bad.
Right.
He should go.
Yes. Yeah. No, I just wanted to bring him up. But yeah, he's, in my opinion, gone. Ruido's way better at 28 years old as well. So in the same amount of money there. So yeah, Ruido over Trotman all day long.
I said one or the other, okay?
No, it's not one or the other. We're telling you Trotman's out.
Okay, I'll call
God damn it.
JR up.
I got him. I'm talking to him right after this. I'm going to get off. Once we're done with this, I'm going to get on the phone with him. I'm going to wake him up.
Call him on his flip phone.
Right. We're going to handle this, okay? All right? I get him his blackmail. He puts on all the other GMs and his deals, okay?
Oh, you mean like the Derek Brassard one?
I told him not to do the Brassard one, okay?
Okay.
I was against the Brassard one. He didn't listen to me. Our phones didn't work that day.
Guess who's still in the playoffs? Derek Brassard.
Yeah, good for him. And then last on the list, we have Garrett Wilson. I liked Garrett Wilson. What do you guys think? Any thoughts there? Isn't much to talk about?
Nah.
He's whatever. He's clearly replaceable. Yeah. Bring him back. Bring him back.
Right, yeah.
He's 28. Why not put a young kid in that scenario and see if he can succeed?
Sure. No, I think So the biggest thing we're looking at, Phil Kessel in the offseason, right? Mm-hmm. That's going to be the biggest news for them, the biggest move, the biggest whatever. The rest of the roster, is it pretty much going to come back? We're kind of saying yes. Is that what we feel Rutherford is going to do? I mean, there's not much of an option.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
I think this is more. No, I think this is more a scenario where if he's not happy with things, he's going to have to look to try to replace it through not the next year full way through, kind of like he did to make up for the Broussard trade. It didn't happen overnight. It took its course to work out. So,
and I would say the only thing that would throw a wrench into kind of what we think is going to happen is if they were to move Malkin, because then I feel like they kind of blow up everything underneath him,
right,
and just go from scratch.
Sure. No, it's going to be an interesting offseason here for sure. There's a lot on the table. Anyway, do you guys have anything else we want to talk about on the Penguins here? Or, obviously the offseason, we're going to see what happens and hope for the best. And then obviously, hopefully we can have an episode where we talk about the moves and what we think and what we like. But I don't think there's much more to cover on the Penguins, you guys.
Or maybe they won't make any moves and we'll be like, what the F?
And then they'll repeat again.
That's the team that's coming up next.
Yeah.
That's their off season. Yeah. So moving on, a little segue out of that, let's talk about that team that doesn't make many off-season moves. The Pittsburgh Pirates. They had a rough week this past week. The Diamondbacks pretty much said, hey, come over here. We're going to bend you over our counter and shove our dicks up your ass and beat the shit out of you all week. So what's your thoughts, Andrew, Jordan? I'll leave it more to you guys. You guys probably have to see the Pirates more than I did. I was busy all week and really didn't get to follow the games, just saw they got their butts spanked. So what do we think this past week of the Pirates?
Well, losers of 6 in a row at this point. I think this is bound to happen when the starting pitching started to falter and come back to earth. There's no wiggle room because that lineup is terrible. Again, they're injured. Basically, their two major league hitters in the lineup are out, and Dickerson and Marte. So
today, Dickerson had a setback. So did Chisenhall. They're both going to go back on the IL.
Wow.
I mean, literally, I don't know how to make this any simpler. This team could have went out, spent the same money on a guy like Manny Machado, and had a payroll at the same place that they were in 2015, and you have an elite shortstop then instead of fucking Eric Gonzalez murdered your best player on the team.
And that was a hard freaking hit. Like, holy, I was watching it that night, and I was like, my God.
And it's a recurring theme with this guy. He does not call pop-ups. He's running the Jung Ho twice, which language barrier, I get it. But
sure.
We have, but if you hear a voice in baseball in a pop fly, it doesn't take a freaking rocket scientist to think that guy's saying got it.
Right. They should have just signed Freddie Galvis instead of signing young Freddie Galvis.
Right. He was 1 year younger than Freddie Galvis. And what pisses me off is just that, I mean, now we have to hope Cole Tucker, which is fine. I'm not having a problem with Cole Tucker. He'll hit for average, whatever. That's fine. But they don't have run producers outside. Josh Bell is playing out of his mind right now, and I don't even like Josh Bell. But kudos to him.
Good
He's been unreal this year.
You have him, and you have Jung Ho putting one across the fence when he can't hit the ball.
Right, but he hits homers.
It's either a strikeout, or it's either an out or a
Frazier's slumping. You just have guys slumping, and the starting pitching. Trevor Williams is illegitimate. Probably ace at this point.
I like Williams.
Musgrove is great. Tyon, who knows what he's going to do because he's all over the place. Archer, you're going to have a 4 ERA, and you just don't have the lineup to produce runs to back him up, and your bullpen only has 2 legit MLB arms in it.
We thought it was going to be a strength.
Kella's been awful.
Yeah, Kella's been awful.
Won't talk to the media.
I don't. The ones that say that they do, it's more just like, I don't know. He'll talk to them. He just doesn't want to freaking be part of the whole have stories written about him kind of thing. He just, I don't know. Whatever. That's kind of whatever. I don't really care too much about that. But I am concerned that our best bullpen arm is our former best starting pitcher from 5 years ago. And, the guy's like in his late 30s. And I mean, he's doing fine, but then we can't trust anyone else. What? Nick Birdie, he's probably dead now, so I don't have to worry about him sucking anymore. He's like tore his arm off.
Kyle Crick is solid.
Right, Kyle Crick's good, and Vasquez is going to be solid.
But you have nobody that can get you from the 5th to the 8th.
Rodriguez's ERA is down to about 3.70 now, I believe, which is mind-blowing because he lost them about 4 games already this year.
JB Shuck pitched the other night and was throwing darts at night.
How about that, JB Shuck? It's actually not awful, but at the same time, we're relying on JB Shuck to fucking play in the outfield.
JB Shuck and Jason Martin? Who are these people?
Right.
This isn't the 2005 team. This isn't fucking have two good players and a rest of minor leaguers around.
It might be worse.
This is a playoff contention team. It's supposed to be. We're talking about having possibly the greatest starting rotation in baseball, but we can't put a fucking major league lineup around them. We want to pretend like we're competing. Then you have to spend some money. I'll give them credit. They made moves to compete in season. The trades they usually make to compete for the most part. But when it comes to free agency, they play the fucking card of that's not in our budget, or that's not the way that we do business, and we do things internally, or we scout the guy that'll cost us a minor league deal or $1 million.
Yeah, they signed one major league free agent this year. One. The rest of them are all minor league free agents.
It's annoying. I'm honestly almost pissed off that Jordan Lyles has been as good as he was until the last game, because it validates that this whole bullshit of we're just going to go sign guys to minimum deals.
But that's been their MO with these old pitchers, or guys that were good for 1 year and fell off. That's been their MO even through trades.
Yeah, no, I mean, this past week it hasn't been looking good, but also if you throw a timeout, they're still not sitting in a bad spot if they can get it turned around, if their lineup can get healthy, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're still sitting at not a bad spot, but they are sitting at a bad spot, in my opinion, that the fact that the NL Central is really good.
Right.
There's not a lot of wiggle room, though. So if you
if you start to fall, then we need to start moving guys out, because here's the deal. You're probably not going to compete in that division for a few years then.
Right. No, that's the thing. I think that why there is maybe a panic button right now is the fact that if you fall behind in the Central, I don't think there's any way you catch back up.
Unless you're the Cubs.
Yeah, sure. I mean, they don't have the thing is the Cubs have a major league lineup 1-9.
Yeah.
Right.
Even Jason Hayward's hitting again.
Exactly.
I guess my question would be, if the lineup gets healthy, does that make it any better?
Maybe a little, but
If they're 100% healthy, they have a decent lineup. You have a good outfield with a good bench bat, because you're going to be able to have Dickerson, Marte, and Polanco, and you're going to have probably Chisenhall, who's a decent bat. Haven't got to see him play this year, but he's been decent in the past, and Melky Cabrera off the bench,
who has been amazing.
The big problem you have is your middle infield.
Right.
That's your entire hole in the lineup, because you get to the 7-8 spot in your lineup. You get 2 outs in the pitcher.
You might as well guarantee an inning, at least 2 innings a game. You're not going to do anything. 3 innings a game, you're going to go down 1, 2, 3.
Right. And the funny part is usually the pitcher is the one that has the better battle at bat than the other two in the lineup.
Trevor Williams and Musgrove, at least those guys, are athletes and they're competitive.
Right.
And that's been their problem the past couple of years, where you had guys like Mercer and. I'm not a Jordy Mercer fan.
Right, me neither.
But you have guys out there that are going to hit 230, 240 with no pop, hitting 7-8.
Right. I mean, Mercer's hit 10 double-digit home runs before, hitting 250, 260. Josh Harrison, with his head bobbing, I mean, he's still going to hit you 270 and, 8 to 10 homers. What is Eric Gonzalez going to give you, 230 with 5 backs? I mean, I get he's out for a long time now, but still, that was never going to be unless he was going to blow everyone's doors off and come out and hit 310 or hit 20 homers. What were they thinking?
Sure.
He's a fucking above average shortstop. Well, I'm sorry. Then if that's above average, Jordy Mercer must have been a fucking all-star.
I like it. I like it. So this week wasn't good, but one thing I do want to talk about is some past things that happened. I want to look at the Cole and Kutch trades now. So looking back at what they traded for versus where Cole and Kutch are and versus what the Pirates have from them, what we think of that. So, Andrew, do you have the trades there?
I didn't write them down off the top of my head. Cole went for Feliz, Musgrove, Moran.
Yes.
And Kutch was for Kyle Crick. And Brian Reynolds.
So, and $500,000 international spending money.
Who brought in Martin? Else. Didn't one of those two bring in Martin?
I think Martin was a homegrown guy.
Okay.
Right. Anyway, so basically all those guys are on the Major League roster except for Michael Feliz, and he was last year. So
he was bad.
I don't want to give the Pirates too much credit, but I have no problem with those deals.
Right.
Andrew McCutchen's my favorite Pirate of all time. Always will be. But he wasn't a guy Corey Dickerson replaced him twofold. Plus, I know he's in a different position, but he's also a Gold Glover last year. And McCutchen defensively was a liability in center, and he didn't want to move out of center. Whenever Marte was way better than him. I wish McCutchen would never have left Pittsburgh, but that was a good deal. And as far as Garrett Cole, he was amazing last year. He's been kind of so-so this year. He was never going to pitch the way he did last year in Houston. He was going to do that in Pittsburgh last year.
Right.
And, I mean, you may have, everyone said they sold low on him with that, but Musgrove's been amazing. And Moran's been a solid bat this year.
I think the problem is, and the Pirates are starting to change their ways, but for a while it was, hey, let's pitch to contact. And now you're telling your guys to go out and throw more breaking balls, try to get more spin on your fastball. And that's why I think you're seeing guys like Williams and Musgrove pitch really well, whereas they weren't doing that with Cole. They were taking a strikeout pitcher and turning him into a contact pitcher.
Right.
And there is a common theme with players not doing better now than what they were ever going to do with the Pirates. We'll probably talk about another one here soon, I would imagine.
So the Pirates could be an example to an extent of what the Penguins could look at doing with like a soft rebuild. They traded their two cornerstone pieces, but were a better team last year than they were with them.
Right.
And I mean, that's not, in every case, and I'm not saying that the answer, let's go trade Malkin because we're going to be better for it, but it is possible.
Right. Well, that was my thing looking back at the NHL. I'm looking at the teams left in the playoffs, and I'm going, they're not top to bottom superstar powered teams that are much left. So, yeah, I think the same thing applies here with the Pirates. That has worked out well. Another trade I want to talk about is the Archer trade. What are our thoughts? Because a lot of people are looking at how Meadows is playing and how Glasnow is playing and kind of flipping out a little bit. But is Archer doing enough to validate versus those two in the lineup? Like does Meadows make a healthy Pirate lineup or not? Like, you know what I mean? So, Jordan, what's your thoughts on the Archer trade?
I will say that both players, Meadows and Glasnow, are going to be stars for Tampa Bay. They are good. Glasnow is filthy, and he's real hard to hit. The Archer deal, I don't think will ever be what he was 3-4 years ago. He's not that good of a pitcher. That being said, it was a move the Pirates had to make to show the fans and, gain a little bit of goodwill for making a move that shows, hey, we're serious about contending. And granted, it's a move that should have been made 2-3 years earlier, but it was a move they had to make for the fans. And I feel like that, as somebody who does actively root for the Pirates, you had to be happy when that happened, no matter what they gave up prospect-wise, because it showed that they were willing to, finally deal a prospect and get somebody back. But those other two guys are going to be all-stars.
Honestly, even with, I hate to say this, but even if they come out, Glasnow and Meadows come out and be Hall of Famers, I don't have a problem with that deal. Just because, like Jordan said, it was proving that they were willing to contend. That was like, whenever they made that deal, that was saying, like, even though they probably knew they weren't going to do it last year, like they weren't going to contend last year, but this was to say, like, hey, we're going to go out, we're going to get this guy that could project to be a top of the rotation arm, may not end up being like that. He's also like a glue guy in the clubhouse. The players love him. Right. I mean, literally everyone gravitates to him. He's a leader in that clubhouse, and you needed that with Kutch gone, because Kutch was the heartbeat of that clubhouse. Sure. And I think that goes a little bit understated in this. I mean, he needs to perform on the field too, but that trade, I would do it 100 times out of 100 just to prove to us, the fans, we are trying to win. Just so that they can ruin all that goodwill in the offseason by doing nothing. And
that's the worst part of it. You make a deal like that, and you do nothing to supplement it at all. Sure. You go out and say, hey, we're going to get him because we have him, it doesn't help us this year only. It helps us down the road, but you don't do anything else. And so that's the only thing that burns you about it.
That's what I want to talk about, though. If the Pirates make a move to be a PR move, essentially, then they're never going to win, in my opinion, because they should be way smarter than any fan. They should not listen to any fan base's decisions. They should be smart enough to make decisions because they're smarter than us. in my opinion. So if they're making decisions based on what the masses wants, they're never going to win.
Well, I think they truly thought they could turn Archer back into an ace.
Sure. I'm hoping it's, in my opinion, I hope that deal had nothing to do with the Pirates fan base, in my opinion.
At the same time, I feel like Huntington knows what he's doing.
Sure.
Knows what he wants to do. He's not able to do it.
Right.
And that's the biggest problem they have is I'm sure there's guys out there that he'd be like, hey, we can make this work.
Right.
And they're just not willing to spend the capital on it.
To answer your question before, no, Meadows is not touching the field with those guys healthy at least until next year when Dickerson would be gone.
I think he would have played over Polanco.
God, they love Polanco, though.
Polanco can't stand.
He can't slide. He can't run the bases.
But that's the thing, though. Like you said, I think Meadows wouldn't have made the lineup on a healthy... So, yes, that trade, in my opinion,
is Glasnow...
we have this guy that could be a stud, but, we don't really know, and we need a pitcher, and this guy could be a stud pitcher. So, I do think it was a good trade. And for Tampa, maybe it does turn out great for them long term, but, for the Pirates, could it turn out great, though, too? Does Archer... he has done well on some starts and stuff, so maybe it does do well for the Pirates too, where he's their good number 3 or something. So
Tampa's prime for a team that's young, doesn't spend a whole bunch of money, but is doing it right.
Yeah,
they went out and they got Charlie Morton, who's we know Charlie Morton's a pretty good pitcher now, and Blake Snell's a monster. They get Glasnow too. They just have a thing with hard throwing arms, and they're doing it right.
Sure. No, do you guys, though, have any more thoughts on the Pirates right now, or anything?
I think once they're about 6-7 games out, I think they're already about done. I mean, in that division, but because they, at this point, the only team that they're clearly better than is the Reds, and I think we have the starting pitching that can hang with the rest of them, but. We gotta either get healthy or something's gotta change in this lineup because it's not gonna cut it. Honestly, the way this lineup's currently built, it might be the worst lineup in baseball with injuries and everything. I mean, maybe the Orioles have a worse lineup, but that's because they're literally tanking.
They sat Bell at Cervelli the other day, and that lineup they played was cool.
I mean, Cervelli's bad.
It was a minor league lineup with 2 major leaguers in it. It's worse than what the Orioles are putting out there that day.
If we would have looked at the Indianapolis Indians lineup or the Altoona Curves lineup from 4 years ago, it's probably the same lineup.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we'll wrap up the Pirates here. And before we finish up the show, let's look at the Steelers draft. Jordan, I know you're going to have big insight here.
As an Eagles fan.
Go Birds!
On the Steelers. We're not even going to try to explain Jordan being an Eagles fan. We're going to deal with it. I'm not even going to try to get into it. But, you can still give insight. You're going to know more about Devin Bush than I am, being a Penn State fan and me being a Pitt fan. So, you can have some input there. The big news for the Steelers draft is that they traded up for the number 10 overall pick, and they took Devin Bush, inside linebacker out of Michigan. A lot of people are loving this deal. My big thing about draft classes, though, is it doesn't matter until it's proven on the football field and at the NFL level. It seems like a great move, yes, but time still is out to tell. Andrew, what do you think about the Devin Bush pickup?
I mean, the way it looks right now, it looks great. I mean,
on paper trade.
Some of these experts, the fucking morons like Mel Kiper Jr. Maybe not him specifically, but some of them are
him specifically. This podcast is very anti Mel Kiper Jr.
Right.
All right.
Some of these guys were saying Devin Bush was the best player in the draft, or the second best player in the draft. Overall. I mean, you got a guy that can go out there, fill that Shazier role, be the quarterback of that defense, and has that speed of Shazier, which we haven't had at all.
Right.
It has been sorely missed. I get we were the 6th best defense last year. First off, it's very funny that we had a number 4 offense and number 6 defense and didn't make the playoffs last year.
Yeah, no, that's the funny part is a lot of people bitch about the Steelers defense, but if you look at them the last 2 years, they've actually had a very solid defense the last 2 years.
Right.
Statistically wise.
Yeah, statistically. Now, they are prone to give up the big play and stuff like that, but
sure,
that's the NFL
that's the
now.
NFL, though. Yeah, it doesn't say every team's giving up big freaking plays.
You can't really blame them. I mean, I feel better having him there than, a couple of these guys that we signed over the past couple of years.
As Steelers fans, we've been spoiled with some really good defensive teams that
it's
people
just
try
like
to compare it to.
We've had the Steelers usually have Hall of Famers on defense, just like the Penguins have Hall of Famers, and that's usually what happens. And I like the pick a lot. We'll see how it pans out. It seems like they're talking about he has the pedigree. Well, I was watching a lot of the draft. It seems like most of the players have the pedigree of
Triple H has a pedigree. I don't know what it has to do with anything.
It's all about the game.
It's all about the game and how you play it.
And basically all these NFL players anymore have a pedigree of their dad played in the NFL. We're at this point anymore where all their dads played in the NFL or their grandpas played in the NFL. Sure. They all did.
Right.
The NFL's a country club.
Basically, it's professional sports as a country club.
Right.
So,
Seth Rollins also had the pedigree. Short time period. Didn't work out well for him, though.
This has been your WWE Minute.
Yep. This is brought to you live. Pittsburgh Podcast featuring WWE pedigrees. No, so Devin Bush, to me, that's, Shazier Phil is necessary. Jordan, what do you think of Devin Bush?
So Steelers had to draft a linebacker, especially with Shazier most likely not going to be back. But great player. Watched him torment Penn State last year. Year before, different story. But last year he was great, and physical monster. Does have a little bit of an issue with trying to go after other players and start stuff before games, especially like the Michigan State game where he's out kicking the logo before the game.
Right.
I feel like hopefully the Steelers can control that aspect of him.
They're really good at controlling.
They're not really known for that. That's why
Mike Tomlin's really good at controlling his players.
I feel like this is a great character pick for them. No, he's going to be productive. Hopefully the guys on defense will kind of lead him in the right direction, keep him away from that kind of stuff, and he'll be great for him. He's probably the second best linebacker in the draft if you consider Josh Allen a linebacker.
Right. But it's ironic you said about the character issues, but the fact that they got rid of their two most character problem guys, and I thought recently you've been drafting really good character guys, and now this guy's in the mold. So like you said, hopefully something changes in the water and they can get it figured out and he doesn't become a head case problem, because that would be disastrous if that happens again all over again after getting rid of the two that were, Brown wasn't until the end here. I know that's still weird. But anyway, I don't think there's much more to say about Devin Bush. Hopefully time will tell that he's a great asset. Then they had to wait till the third round to pick again. And with the 66th overall pick, it's a good number. They pick, Deontay Johnson, wide receiver out of Toledo. And I guess the mold there is that he's supposed to be kind of an Antonio Brown, hopeful type player, where a guy out of a smaller situation and a smaller build guy, but can turn it on in the field. And I guess he has, great hands. Andrew, what's your thoughts on Johnson?
So he was seen to be a reach, but Steelers have had recently pretty good, I guess just Juju was proven to be a solid receiver choice in the draft. Maybe some before that, Lima Swede, stuff like that didn't work out so well. So he probably can be that kick returner and kind of come in on passing downs kind of receiver where they probably have enough for this year if James Washington takes a step forward.
So I think he's like the X factor.
Right. And keep in mind, they signed Dante Moncrief, who isn't a bad player. Whenever he was in Indianapolis with the Colts, actually getting time with Andrew Luck, he was solid.
Could he be like the Jericho Cotchery, come in and be...
Yeah. He's a good complementary receiver.
Right. Yeah, he's a good number 3 receiver, definitely, who can kind of profile as a 2 at times if they need him to. But this all relies on, is Juju going to be able to handle the type of stuff that AB was seeing now, though?
Well, right.
So that's kind of the thing, too. But James Washington's the X factor. This guy's probably going to get a little bit of leash. I would assume he's going to come in and return punts and kicks. That's going to be probably his bread and butter this first season. And
it looks like Big Ben's going to be thrown to him for another 2 more years after this year, too. So
maybe they'll just turn him into a robot. And
well, I mean, if he gets any water from Tom Brady or something, I guess he just never ages. I don't know.
You said about it being a reach, but right in that late 50s, mid 60s range, a ton of receivers were just going. So I guess it made sense to get the one you wanted before, because he wasn't going to slip any farther. So
sure. No, I mean, it's a time will tell type pick there. And then also in the third round, 83rd overall, Justin Lane, cornerback out of Michigan State. I don't know anything about Justin. I read a thing that they said he's more of a physical cornerback.
Yeah, he's larger. He's bigger than what we have.
What are your guys' thoughts there?
So I think this is kind of an insurance pick because I think they kind of expect Artie Burns to probably be done. Okay. I don't think they have any faith in him at all because he doesn't have any faith in himself. We're going to assume that obviously we have Hayden on one side and Steven, who's the guy we signed from the Giants or the Chiefs. Steven,
what's his name?
Hawk.
I know you're talking about getting that footage name.
You're gonna cut this.
Yeah.
No, he's gonna put.
No, I just let us.
You should. I mean, it's raw.
No, let me get the stuff.
Steven Nelson. So the Steelers are gonna have Hayden on the one side and Steven Nelson on the other side. People were ripping on that signing, but I mean, he can't be worse than Artie Burns. He was the most targeted corner in the NFL last year. Steven Nelson was.
Right.
But I still think he's going to be an upgrade. And he has, the Steelers defense is a little bit better than the Chiefs defense. Chiefs defense was awful last year.
Well, it's also a tough one.
And the Chiefs, keep in mind, the Chiefs were winning big every game.
Right.
Teams were throwing on them because they're losing by 30.
Yeah, as I say, it's tough when you're the Chiefs, though, because you're scoring like crazy. Like you said, teams are going to be throwing like crazy, and teams get the ball a lot more and stuff because it wasn't like the Chiefs were scoring with a 12-minute drive. They were scoring in 13 seconds. So,
Yeah.
So, it's
By
tough
the way,
to judge defense.
I don't think the Chiefs are making the playoffs this year. So.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I think Pat Mahomes will drag them to the playoffs, and that division's not that good.
Yeah, but all he has now is Kelsey.
That's fine.
I mean, Hunt's
Tom
gone.
Brady's done it with a bunch of garbage.
Andy Reid got McNabb to the playoffs with Todd Pinkston.
I mean, he's going to throw Chris Conley every down.
He might have to.
Because, Tyreek Hill's...
They're bringing back Baldwin from Pitt.
All right.
Wow. But so we'll see on that. But anyway, I think Justin Lane, if he can, he can come in. I guess ideally, I don't know how much they want from Nelson, if they want him to be that definite number 2, or if they can hope he can eventually be that William Gay role with Lane becoming on the opposite side. I guess we'll see.
Yeah. Jordan, do you have any thoughts on Justin Lane? Do you know anything about the Michigan State cornerback?
Not a lot. Just, from Penn State playing them. I've seen him play. He really wasn't being tested because, Penn State's outside receivers were Jawan Johnson, who just cannot run a route. So, he covered him, so.
All right. Fourth round then, 122 overall pick. They took Benny Snell Jr., the running back out of Kentucky, which I thought was a great fourth round pick for them because now that will give them Connor, Samuels, and then Snell, which I think is a great 3-punch in my opinion. Andrew, what's your thoughts on them picking up Benny Snell?
That's a perfect pick. Gives you that old school 3rd and 1 back, the short yardage back, take some of that heat off of Connor because it seemed like Connor was dogging a bit in the second half last year. He did get injured and everything like that. And that's to assume Connor's going to be at the same level he was last year, but I don't think he's.
Well, I've always said about James Conner as being from even Pitt to Steelers, whatever. He's always, in my opinion, played way better than I've ever expected each time. But I've always he's not as good as he did last year. And then the next year he comes out and he does it again. And I'm like, Steelers take him. He's not going to be that great. And then he comes out and plays good. I'm like, I don't. So he always proves me wrong. I don't know. I never think he's as good as advertised, but he proves me wrong. Jordan, you got to unfortunately see Benny Snell run on Penn State in the bowl game. What's your thoughts on Benny Snell?
He is a legit back who's a bruiser. He's got decent feet. He cuts pretty well. He's going to be a good back for them. And with the way the NFL is anymore, every team needs 2 or 3 good running backs. So getting one in the 4th, which is probably the sweet spot, is the 3rd, 4th round in the draft for a running back anmore with their shelf life. So
and he was considered a guy that they thought was going to go in the 2nd round.
No, that's the
Steelers were shocked he was still there.
It's a shame they couldn't get Miles Sanders.
Yeah, Mr. Eagles, okay.
That jersey is ordered.
So the rest of it, then they took a tight end, an outside linebacker, defensive tackle, inside linebacker, and offensive tackle. Do you have any more thoughts, Andrew, for the rest of the draft? I mean, those are guys where time will tell. Obviously. It looks like those positions that were needed.
Most of them are probably going to play special teams.
Sure.
The tight end might get some time, although
Right.
he said he's like extremely raw. They didn't even think he should have came out this year, but he's huge. He's like 6'8".
All right.
So, I mean,
if he can turn into Gronk in a couple
I guess
years.
I just hope he's a little better than Xavier Grimble, so
Right.
because he's not very good. But
hopefully he can turn into
I mean, Vance McDonald is very solid.
Tom McDonald was great.
Right, and he'll take some heat off, and he can speed the stay at home, that blocking tight end, keep Ben upright, learn in time, become Gronk. That'd be ideal. But, all of these would be ideal if these guys became Hall of Famers. But,
well, sure.
if we can have two of those guys be consistent NFL starters, it's a good draft.
Sure. Jordan, the Eagles, what did they do? What's all the excitement for you, the 5 Eagle fans that
I know. Everybody's really going to enjoy this.
No, just give a shout out to the Eagles.
Yeah.
What do you got?
They took a left tackle, and it's kind of rare in the draft to get an actual left tackle and not a guy that has to come in and play guard right away.
Mm-hmm.
They looked at him as a top 10 pick, and they traded up a couple spots to get him, but they got him in, I think, 22, which fair pick for them. And second round, I was real happy.
Yeah.
They got Miles Sanders.
Nice.
I was excited,
Nice.
especially with their running back situation isn't great. I mean, they got Jordan Howard, who's a bruiser, but he doesn't give you much else. But I think Miles Sanders will be great for him. They got a receiver from Stanford that's a monster, but a little raw. So we'll see. I like their top 3 picks. Way too many defensive tackles after that, but it is what it is.
Nice. So that's going to wrap up the Steelers draft thoughts. Andrew, is there anything coming up to watch? I mean, the only thing I'm going to say is please continue to watch the NHL playoffs. The NHL playoffs have been fantastic. Even though the Penguins are out, it makes them much more enjoyable for me because I can just watch and enjoy the games now.
We also didn't talk about the NBA.
So what's the soccer team in Pittsburgh again?
Pittsburgh Riverhounds.
So the Riverhounds would make it on the show a lot more than the NBA would.
I assume.
We're sorry to all the Pittsburgh NBA fans
Right.
that I don't know of. That's not going to happen on this show. But coming up with the watch, I think NHL playoffs, continue to watch that. Who the Pirates have coming up in the next couple series?
They finish their series obviously tomorrow in LA with the Dodgers, which would be Sunday for everyone.
This will probably go up Monday. So
right. So Tuesday and they're off Monday. Tuesday and Wednesday they go to Texas for 2, play the Rangers, and they come home next weekend for 3 against Oakland. So there's probably another at least 3-4 losses there.
Gotcha. Jordan, do you have anything? Is there anything off the cuff sports-wise that's worth watching right now?
Not really. Keep watching hockey. Enjoy the playoffs, getting these teams with, players you might not really know that much about.
Right.
Watch them play and enjoy the excitement. The NBA, the Warriors are going to win, so you can watch that.
They got tested, though.
They did get tested.
I don't even know that much.
Actually, I don't know that they ended up winning the series. But
I don't even know that much. So.
If they didn't, we'll cut it.
You're way ahead of me.
Other than that, I don't think there's really much going on.
There's not another major in the golf until next month, so I can't go Tiger!
It would be the AAF playoffs, but they got shut down.
But rip in peace.
No AAF anymore.
AAF.
Is there any tennis?
What do you expect when you have a league carried by Christian Hackenberg? Trent Richardson.
Yeah.
So
maybe we can have a topic about the XFL coming up then in the future. Then we'll talk about what they can maybe try to do. But first of all, everyone, please remember if you're listening on Google Play, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube, please subscribe, smash the like button, and follow us on Twitter at the 3 Rivers Pod, Instagram 3 Rivers Pod, and on Facebook, search 3 Rivers Podcast for its Facebook page. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I'm Kruz Shoemaker here with the fourth line plug, Andrew Singo.
Nice to be here.
And our special guest referee for this episode, and hopefully comes back and becomes a regular referee, Jordan Sander.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good night.